don't get stuck on the square footage because you really don't know. Depending upon the layout of the space, there could be a lot of unusable space. It could be a lot of hallways or you're paying for space that's really not usable space. So depending upon the needs of your business, and everybody has different needs,
right.
It depends on the flow and the floor plan of the space.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode here on the Business Breakthrough Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, Gina Coletti. Gina has such an immense background that goes on for days. Decades of experience in the banking industry, experience in real estate, working with chambers of commerce. And Gina actually founded the Suffolk County Alliance of Chambers 10 years ago and only recently resigned so that she could put more focus in her endeavors in real estate. Gina is currently a member of the Long Island Women's Council of Realtors and an approved member of the Women Economic Developers of Long Island. Wedley?
Yes.
All right, I said it right. I just wanted to give you a moment just to do your own kind of dive into your background, anything that you wanted to highlight from your experience. Today, we're going to be talking a lot about the real estate side of things and how your experience and what you know, and try to grab some of that information so we can give some tactical information and steps that people can take.
Absolutely. So I started my career back in the day working at Citigroup. I was in banking for 20 years. So I have the finance background, which is extremely important when dealing, obviously, with real estate and all the facets of real estate. Worked at that time with small business development centers because I would always refer people when they would come in for a business loan. I would refer them to a small business development center so that they could learn, what their steps are and help them come back to the bank and move forward. So understanding that dynamic and having those relationships is key. And then from there, working in the banking industry, I became a member of a Chamber of Commerce to network because you learn how important it is in any business it is to network. Became a board member. Then I became the president of the Nesconset Chamber of Commerce. While I was the chamber president doing a downtown revitalization through Suffolk County and getting the funding for that to go along Smithtown Boulevard in Nesconset. So that was like all the things that you start to learn and you understand the dynamics of a chamber. Obviously, when you become a member, you see like all the things that you can get involved with networking and events that they host. So you really do learn how much of a benefit it can be for any type of business and being involved in your community. So it's very important. Also, I had become an appraiser like many, many years while I was still working in the banking industry. I fee appraised on the side because I always had that. I really always had the desire to be in real estate as well. So I have an appraisal license from many, many moons ago and wound up going into real estate sales and became a broker. So understanding the transition.
Yeah, that interesting way to get your foot in the door, kind of like through the side door.
Right.
And so you're getting to see the process because you're a part of that process doing the appraisals.
Right.
And so you get to pick up things here and there from the different real estate agents, and then you get to make your entrance in as an agent yourself.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting because you get to see, it's like the real estate appraisal is completely tied to the mortgages, obviously, and the banking side. And then when you are a real estate broker, and I do residential and commercial real estate, so, you get to see, you have that knowledge that a lot of agents don't have the appraisal side. They have the sales side, but they don't have all the knowledge of having, that piece of the puzzle, which is so important as well, and in any deal, and knowing how that impacts, a transaction. So it's
pretty significant.
Yes, very significant.
Anyone that's bought a house knows.
Yeah, exactly. Everything is based off the appraisal.
It is. That's what there's like all the conversation that happens before the appraisal,
right?
And then there's the
after.
Exactly.
So it's a very interesting component, and to have it's like a full broad, spectrum view of the whole puzzle. Because I've seen and worked in every piece of it, really. Right. So it's really very helpful, and people really appreciate that because they understand, how much I do have to put, help them, in any transaction going forward. So it's great. It's very interesting, and I enjoy it. I love it.
That's great.
I love helping people. I've always done that my whole life.
For people that maybe aren't aware, they've been in the space of, yeah, I think I want to start a business one day, or, maybe it's even in like the 10-year plan, like, all right, I know I got to work here. I want to pay off some debts. I want to position myself, have some savings.
Yeah.
But they're starting their journey of education. They want to learn more. So what is the difference between realtor, real estate agent, and a real estate broker?
So a real estate agent works for a broker. A broker is really any transaction that is, anytime you deal with an agent, that agent works for a broker. Okay. So the broker is really like the house in essence.
Got it.
Okay. So as far as getting licensed as a broker, you need to have many transactions under your belt to even become a broker. So you have to be in the business a certain amount of years, and you have to have a certain amount of transactions that have been done, completed, right? So that all gets taken into consideration, and you have to file with the state, obviously. So there's all different pieces of that puzzle.
Sure.
And they change also, because the state always changes their mandates and, their rules and regs. So over time, that has morphed as well, even on the appraisal side.
So what can a broker do that a real estate agent can't do? Like, what happens when you get to that?
The broker is really more in charge of the compliance side as well. Like they're in charge of making sure that everybody is putting all their ducks in a row, and
I see.
They have to follow compliance. There's you have a license. It's like any other license out there. You have to follow the rules and the regs and stay in compliance. But the broker is really in charge of the transaction. Like ultimately, if the agent has questions, they have to refer and defer to the broker. And, if there's any negotiation that has to come into play, the broker should be approving it to make sure that everything is legit. And so there's a lot more responsibility, obviously, of being a broker.
Yes.
But,
absolutely.
Without a doubt. So,
the fact that you sought that out and went for it is that just another testament of your character. Holy smokes.
Yeah. No, it's all great stuff. It really is. It's like, and I worked as an associate broker. You can become a sales agent and then become an associate broker. You can apply for your broker's license and be an associate broker. So as an associate broker, you're working under a broker as well, right? But you could always go off on your own if you wanted to, because you have the capability to do so. So I did that for many, many years when I worked for a company that property managed for Nassau County. And it was an extremely amazing experience. It was a niche business because, we property managed all the landmark properties and the veteran
and up
homes
here,
in Mitchell Field. Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
Sands Point Preserve, Muttontown Preserve, like all these amazing properties that people don't even know exist out there. So, and
that's really cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like, and the county owns Nassau County owns approximately 2,600 properties.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. So we property managed a lot, and I personally did the inventory analysis for the county. So you get to really learn what they have, and when they want to shift, like if they realize that they want to sell off a property, they analyze what they have, and just like in banking, they do that too. They look at what they have and they consolidate and put different people into different offices, combine things and then sell off a property. So it's like it's interesting. You get to learn like so many different things.
Yeah, it's the behind the scenes kind of things that's happening on the governmental side.
And public-private partnerships.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I may as well jump right into that.
Yeah.
And it's because I immediately thought of how is this information then shared with the public, and this kind of also goes into the chamber side when we're talking about networks and relationships and things of that nature. Right. So how does it work? So let's say the county decides that of these numerous properties that they have, they're going to sell something.
They might sell it or they might lease it.
Fair point. Absolutely fair point. How does a person that's looking for maybe to expand their business, they want another property to be able to go off of, how does somebody like that become aware of this information? And
talking to the municipalities. and the whole thing is being like, the fact that I have that experience, most people don't.
Right.
So because there's only like a couple of people out there that really deal with their portfolio. So it's a niche business. But so knowing what is out there and knowing the other side of the options that you have, or let's say a not-for-profit that they don't have a lot of funding, they don't have a lot of money to really thrive. Mm-hmm. And they might not be able to afford market rent.
Right.
So a lot of times, like, they can go to a county-owned property if it's available. There's, and, the people are in there and they love staying there because
Yeah,
it's
of
a good
course.
situation. So it's not always available, but
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So even if you're in a position and you just want to find out, you can go to your local municipality, have that conversation about it, and say.
Yeah,
And
do you
typically,
have-
this is
yeah.
more geared towards nonprofits to that side of when it comes to that
Nassau,
public.
that's what they did mostly
Okay.
with their properties. They leased out a lot of them to nonprofits, and they did very well with them. Sometimes they'll negotiate. It could be a permit or it could be a lease. It depends on the situation, but they'll work on different terms, how long they want to stay there, and if they do the work versus, like, maybe do some rent concession or whatever. There's so many different scenarios that people. It's just a matter of talking to the right people, talking to an agent, talking to somebody that is privy to information. So yeah,
You can't be afraid to reach out and start conversations.
Can't
Put
be afraid,
yourself
right.
in positions
And ask
where,
the
yeah,
Yeah.
and you want to be in the right rooms at the right time, which goes back to the chamber.
Right.
You know?
The chambers are so important. Like, I work with, obviously, every person I work with on the real estate side, whether it's a residential or a commercial. I tell people, if you're buying a home, you obviously are in a business somewhere along the line. And I tell them, whatever your business is, you should join your chamber of commerce and get involved in your community. And if it's your business, let's say it's a lease or you're purchasing a building, I will always recommend, we'll connect them with the chamber president, and I'll say, I literally will introduce them.
Wow.
And I tell them, listen, you have to join the chamber because they're going to help you network. They're going to get you exposure. They're going to do a ribbon cutting for you. You'll get in the paper. You'll meet all the people in the town, all the municipality, whether it's a legislator or if there's a mayor, sometimes there's not a mayor, or the town supervisor, the town council. There's so many pieces of the puzzle, and that they get to learn and get build a relationship, with the people that are
And this
involved
is
in their business.
And this is true everywhere.
Everywhere.
The first chamber that I joined, actually, it was probably technically Virginia, but the first chamber that I joined and I actually had the time to engage and be a part of that community was in Indiana. And they did exactly what you're talking about, where they were active the minute that I went in and had the first conversation and I was even considering joining. They're like, you do this, we can get you linked up with these groups. We can have you talk over here. And it was like, they were so passionate about finding the right place for you. And it seems consistent, like no matter what state you're in, what city you're in, like
there's a chamber.
Yeah, the people there is a chamber without question. And the people that are in there are there for like the right reasons.
Right. That's what they are. Everybody wants to help. And that's really so important. It's like everybody in your chamber of commerce, the whole point of, think about the words, the chamber of commerce, it's business. And they want to do business to business. They'll help each other. They network with each other. They'll, refer people to each other. And it's just really about just building relationships and connections. And yeah, it's a wonderful way to get more involved and to make your business thrive. I mean, no matter how you slice it, you should be a part of your chamber. And some towns don't have a chamber if it's a really small town, but you can join, whether as a civic or a rotary, like you could still find an avenue, or you can join the chamber that's next door that is going to help you, with that. Like as a perfect example, when I was working at Citigroup and they wanted everybody to join a chamber of commerce, at that particular time I was in the Lake Grove branch and there was no chamber in Lake Grove.
Oh, wow.
So I wound up joining the Nesconset chamber because it was across the street was the town of Nesconset.
Got it.
And that's how
That's where all the magic started.
That's where it all started. Exactly. So it's just kind of amazing how things evolve.
So
yeah,
some people might be familiar with chambers. I think probably most of the people watching this show are, at least in some way, shape, or form.
I would think
this is really good though, and specifically one of the things that I didn't even realize was a thing was what you started 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's this alliance of chambers. So explain, like, what is that and how does that work?
So it started a decade ago as a result of not having one. It did not exist. It never existed in Suffolk County. Nassau did have one. In my experience working in Nassau County, it was like, what's wrong with this picture? Like, there's like a missing piece here. Like Suffolk is like, they don't have something that they really should have. This is a very important piece of their puzzle.
Right.
So, yeah. So you get to understand, obviously, how important it is. And being a chamber president for as long as I was and being involved in a chamber was ideal because you really get to understand the facets of what a chamber needs and what a chamber doesn't need and how to improve a chamber. So, being the founder, obviously, really helped knowing, number one, not even having a monthly meeting because they're just inundated with member meetings every month and board meetings every month and event planning every month. And we're not doing that, obviously. We'll do quarterlies. It's like and everybody's trying to work, obviously, and make money at the same time because chambers are really, you're not paid to do, your job as a chamber. Everybody's volunteering time, right? So it's, it's really interesting. But back to the question. So how does like a chamber, how does it work? What we did was we had the actual chambers of commerce become a member of the alliance. So
it's almost like another chamber.
It's an umbrella organization.
Yeah, an umbrella. Yeah.
It's just on a larger scale. Mm-hmm. And the chambers would come and they would become a member of the Alliance of Chambers. So we would have much larger meetings. Basically, we have them in theaters, we have them in schools, we have them wherever you could hold a lot of people, clearly, because there are a lot of people. and we would educate them on all sorts of topics. We would take surveys. What are your concerns? What is it that you need help with? I'll give you an example. When some of the businesses were complaining that why does it take so long if they wanted to open up a restaurant, let's say, and they didn't understand like why this process takes so long within that municipality, whatever municipality it is. And it defaults back to like the health department because it has to do with the water and it goes to the health department and all these things. It's all zoning and compliance and right. So we actually would have the commissioner of the health department come and speak at a meeting.
Direct from the source, maybe.
Exactly. So that way there you go. And we would have them ask the questions and they would answer the questions. And everybody would, that's just one example. This is like over a decade of time, but we would constantly do that.
So that's really cool. Like, especially from the educational perspective, when you're looking at getting good, current, valuable information about what's being asked, that you're getting this information from surveys that you're putting out to the chambers. They're giving you the feedback and then you're actually pulling the right strings to get the people that need to be there to facilitate that.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
That's powerful.
It is. It's extremely powerful. And SBDC, right? I mean, the SBDC is an incredible, wealth of knowledge. Right?
I agree.
I know it is. It absolutely is. But it's true though. Yeah. And we've had meetings at SBDCs. We've had them speak at our meetings, whether it wasn't at a location, but they would come to our location wherever we were. So it's really all about education. Honestly, it really is. I mean,
that's how I got to work in depth for the first time ever was in Indiana because of the chamber.
Yeah.
I went over there. I asked some questions about what the chamber is. How does it work?
Right.
They were talking about the membership fees and everything like that. And they're like, but the first thing that you need to do is like right across the street, a block down, there's an SBDC. You need to go over there. I'm like, I don't know what that is.
And that's the thing. Like people don't know what it is.
And it was so powerful.
I'm always to everybody I talk to, I tell them about the SBDC because in one way, shape or form, it will help them, whether it's, with any type of, like they have so many different programs or whether they need a business plan. They didn't know that they needed a business plan. Like there's like, they'll help you and it's a free service. It's amazing. Like how could you beat this?
I know it's so good that many people that I talk to when I was out at fairs and things like that, and I was communicating with people, they're like, okay, but what's the catch? And I'm like,
there is no catch.
I was like, it's so hard to say that there's no catch. I'm like, the catch is you have to do the work.
Right.
Like, and so I try to come up with a catch to let them know that like, this isn't going to be perfect and easy and everything, but it is a completely free for life resource.
Yeah.
It's
amazing.
Just come in and check it out. Like, try to prove me wrong.
Right.
And just, know what I mean?
What are your concerns? Ask the questions. That's how you learn. It's really all about education and making people aware of different situations that they may not have been aware of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you have the same thing when I go back. This is the last thing I'm going to touch on before I really want to shift into the real estate broker side. It's the networking aspect. Because a lot of people, like as technology is evolving and advancing, you have you can get a lot of questions answered online. You could find people, you can join groups. A lot of those cost money. So again,
Right.
SBDC is free.
Right.
But then you also have like the connections of that SBDC
Right.
and the other clients they may have worked with before, or other organizations that have assisted or that they have established relationships with. Like, you don't know how many people in the SBDC have all these different business relationships over the years. And then they're like, oh, I know a person that would be great
That's
for you to
exactly
talk to.
Yep.
And so again,
Happens all the time.
relationships,
Yep.
networking.
Yeah. If somebody doesn't have, they might not know, they might need a plumber, let's say, like they need to have work done in a real estate transaction. They're getting a lease, let's say, whether it's a house or
Right.
commercial, they don't know. And okay, well, I can connect you with numerous people. Like, it's a matter of just networking and connections and offering that as assistance in telling them, like, don't worry, every piece of it gets covered. Because in a chamber, one chamber of commerce could have hundreds of chamber members and they all do different things.
Right.
And then you have all these members that are chambers, and
Yep.
it just kind of
It immediately expands your network,
right.
and then, but then it's just up to you to go in there and
go to
mingle.
right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Meet
And
people.
just go to the meetings and right. Whether it's in your town, if you join a local chamber, it's beneficial.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's great.
It
I
will
love
never
it.
hurt you. It will help you.
Absolutely right. So now looking at going into the real estate
Mhm.
side, let's get to some of the nuts and bolts. I guess before we dive into kind of best practices and maybe common mistakes that people should look out for when they're going
Right.
on this journey, could you describe the kind of the current environment that commercial real estate is in obviously within the area that you're responsible for? If you could speak to a
big
broader
area.
picture, we have a
Yeah.
broad audience, but to the extent that you feel comfortable
Right.
about that. And then what are some of the major factors or indicators that businesses should be looking for, depending, I guess I'm kind of seeing it from like different financial starting places,
Mhm.
and what things should they be looking out for to determine whether or not like now is
It's
a good
suitable.
time to make a decision.
Yeah, it's suitable or not, right?
Yeah.
Well, as far as knowing if it is the right time, it's an interesting question, right? Like, we don't have crystal balls. Nobody knows what the market will do like a day or a year. Like, we think we might know. Nobody
Right.
truly knows, right?
Right.
Nobody does. I mean, it would be nice to know.
We were
that.
talking about it before
Yeah.
the show started that Jerome Powell doesn't even know.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
so
Like, from one
if he
day
doesn't
to
have
the
a crystal
next,
ball,
right?
then none of us.
Nobody has a real crystal ball in this world. So yeah, so in that respect, yes. I mean, you always have to, if you need a house, you need a house, right? It's like, okay, so this is the current market that you're in the residential side. There's no inventory out there. So you have, the interest rates are still, they did come down last week, which is a good thing.
How much did it come
But
down?
it went down to, it's like, it depends on like what product,
Right.
but like they did drop approximately like a half.
Oh, okay.
Point. Like if you
50
look at
basis
like,
points, something like that.
but it's like really depends on your situation, and there's risk-based pricing out there also. So it depends on your credit. So, what
Of course,
one interest rate could be for you might not be the same interest rate for me, because there's risk-based pricing. It's tiered pricing. So that's like the banking side, right? It's like
Mhm.
there's all these different pieces of any puzzle. Like I say that all
Yes.
the time,
Yes.
but it's true. So as far as knowing the right time is, if you need to do something, it's the right time. Like if you're in a situation where you can wait, then okay, you have that option to wait, right? Like you could, all right, let me kind of get my foot and my toes in the water and see what's out there. But if depending upon your individual scenario, if your lease is up, let's say,
Right.
and the landlord is not renewing your lease, you have to find a new place. You're under a gun. You have
Exactly.
you don't have the option. If you're living in an apartment and your lease is up, whether it's a commercial lease, like there's so many different things that could happen in different scenarios. So it's really, honestly, you can go on and on and on
Yeah.
about the different types of situations. But if, let's say, on a commercial side, you're looking to open a business, first thing is what type of business is it and what zoning you need.
Yes.
Okay. So
That'll help to refine the locations that are
Absolutely.
available to you.
So you could say to me, I could say to you, what towns are you looking to be in? Some people don't even know, or some people will tell me the towns that they want to be in, depending upon, where they live, how much of a
Sure.
commute that they want, how convenient do they want this to be for them. They need to be close to home, or they have a child, or they don't. There's so many different factors, right? But if you know the business you're in, obviously zoning is number one, because if, you could find the perfect location and be like, this is exactly where I want to be, and the zoning doesn't suit your business, you can't obviously be there, right? I mean,
Right.
and the fact that people, you could try to go for a zoning board of appeals process, but there's no guarantee you get that either. So,
And then how long is that
and
process to go
that could
through?
take an extremely long time.
How much time do
Right.
you have to make this
to make
decision?
that decision,
Right.
right? And people, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to lock themselves into a lease or buy a building not knowing that they have, like, it's very challenging. So you don't really know. It's a risk.
So when people come, people are in this position and they know that, maybe their lease is ending in the next 6 months, 9 months, maybe even a little bit before
They'll
that.
start to look. They should start to look.
Right. Where would you place reaching out to a professional in their process?
Yeah. If you know that you're like, so in certain leases also, like, let's say it could be either residential or commercial. Your lease could be up, let's say, like, September 1st, let's say, but you have to give them notice. You have to give them 3 months notice. So in order for you to give them that 3 months notice, then you need to know, you have to start looking way prior to that to know if you can say, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, to get
or I want to renew.
To get all of the balls moving in the right direction, so that way you're prepared.
Right.
So even before that, you have to be locked in, confirmed, a minimum of 3 months, just to give that notification and to know that you're
every lease.
Right. And that's fair.
Every lease is different. There's no specific, there's no cut and dry. There's no, it's not like a cookie cutter thing.
Mm-hmm.
Every lease is different. Every landlord is different. They do things differently. So it really depends on your particular situation, what you have.
If you know at some point you're looking for another space, but you're comfortably in a lease right now and you've got some time under your belt, I kind of feel like that's the best time to reach out and to start, just so you understand what the landscape is, and someone can work with you specifically looking at your lease and what you're looking for to be able to develop that plan.
That's right.
Okay.
And the other part of it too is a lot of times, I said zoning, but there's also the different factors, of course, like square footage. What's your budget, right? Like, some people don't even know what the budget is. And that goes back to budget, doing a business plan, right? Like, what have you got to, everybody's different, right? But what's your budget, and how many square feet do you think you need? And that's not always the right answer either, because some people don't understand what is 1,000 square feet, what is 2,000 square feet, or 10,000 square feet. Depending upon the business they're in, they think they might need. And I can give a perfect example of an acupuncturist in Smithtown, AccuWell Services, had come to me looking for space and said she wanted a specific, I need this amount of square feet. And I said, don't get stuck on the square footage, because you really don't know if that, depending upon the layout of the space, there could be a lot of unusable space. It could be a lot of hallways or you're paying for space that's really not usable space. So depending upon the needs of your business, and everybody has different needs,
right,
it depends on the flow and the floor plan of the space.
Yeah, you think about the difference between somebody that wanted to start like a yoga shop versus somebody that wants to do massage, right? The layout, you might need the same exact square footage, but the layout is insanely different.
Totally different.
You want a huge open room,
space versus you need office space.
Private,
private, right? Exactly.
Yeah,
and that too, of course. Let's say it's an open space, right? Well, let me go back to that for a second. So that perfect example was somebody's telling me, this is the amount of square footage that I think I need.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a space that I said, you have to look at this space, and didn't really want to because they thought it was too small. And I said,
that's what I'm getting.
Right. And was looking for a very, very long time to find something that was suitable. And it wound up being perfect, beyond perfect, like this beautiful, beautiful office. And it was way less square footage than she thought she needed because of the way it was laid out. So it wound up being not as expensive because of the way it was laid out.
Sure.
And then it could go back to, okay, you find the perfect space, the perfect location, and let's say it's the yoga versus the... Right? Yeah. So then you have to build in, let's say if you have to put in those private little rooms, that's a cost, right?
Exactly.
That's an expense. Some landlords will be willing to give you a rent concession and you do the work. Some landlords will say, I'll do the construction, but I'm going to increase the price per square foot.
Sure.
There's so many different things.
That's one thing that I loved, especially when I was exiting the military and going into the business space,
Right.
was you realize quickly, like, there are almost no rules.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, everything is negotiable.
It's unique.
Exactly. And everything's
Every
unique.
situation is its own, and it's unique in its own right. And it should be, because, it's like you're dealing with people, right? It's like this person thinks this way and you think this way, and this is what you need, and this is what they want. And it's like, okay, so we'll make this work. Right?
Yes.
But it's just a matter of, understanding that just because you may have had a landlord here that this is the way that landlord did something, that doesn't mean that this landlord is going to be willing to do the same thing. So it's just a learning curve. It's a learning process. And, when you're working with an agent, if you're going into it blindly, there's so many things that you are unaware of that really the agent is there for a reason. I mean, it's a service that is real important.
Yeah. And when it comes to access to property listings, how different is it for somebody that's looking for commercial real estate on their own versus working with somebody such as yourself?
Well, you have different systems out there that obviously, like you as like a consumer, let's say, you're only going to have access to certain things, right? But as a broker, you have access to other systems. As an appraiser, you have access to other systems. So if if you need comps for any real estate transaction, most residential agents will be pulling off of multiple listings because that's what they're doing residential. But I have residential, I do commercial, but I also have systems because I am an appraiser. I also have other systems. So it helps.
Do you need comps in for the commercial side?
Of course.
Okay, that's what I figured. I've never gone through the process. So.
Everything needs comps.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's for a purchase or for a lease, for sure.
Got it.
Absolutely. That's how you really find out, like, what's the market rate, like what's out there right now, and is it too high? Is it too low? Like, if it's too low, why is it too low?
Right.
There's always a reason. And people think, oh, this is a great deal, but there's usually a really good reason why it's ridiculously low.
Good of a price, and it's still on the market.
And it's typically condition. Usually. It's usually something is wrong with this picture. Yeah.
And so it sounds like you could do a lot of work to help these business owners or even aspiring business owners along in the process.
Absolutely.
A lot of expertise, a lot of experience, your own professional network. And this is true for people across the nation if they're going to reach out to somebody that has your level of expertise.
Yes.
So naturally, the first thought, that even I had, and that we talked about this before the show, is, oh my gosh, how much money am I going to fork out now to my broker on top of the amount of money I have to save? And so is the cost worth the value that you're bringing? And you had a very interesting answer.
On the commercial side.
On the commercial side.
Right. The commercial side, typically in New York, the commercial landlord is typically the one who pays for the broker fee. Typically, that's how it works. So on the residential side, it's usually the tenant is usually paying.
Right.
So
and that's what most people are used to.
Yeah. Like when you're looking, let's say, for an apartment, and that's what people are used to. So people think that, but there are scenarios where it might be an exception to a rule. There's exceptions to almost every rule, but
to know the general rule of thumb for
it's
this,
the owner or the landlord that would pay on a commercial building on property that, they would fire you. And
that's really good to know. And so it's just to help remove hesitation from people that are interested, like, oh, I want to know, but am I going to?
9 times out of 10.
That's great. That's really good.
Yeah.
So we kind of went through some common mistakes that people make, but I just want to make sure we touch base there and see if there's anything else that we haven't already hit on when it comes to somebody who's looking for a commercial space. Like, what are some of the common?
The things that they should look for.
Yeah, right.
Parking, seriously.
Yeah, especially think about the type of business you have.
Right. Like, it's so important because, if depending upon your business, if it's ADA compliant, if let's say you're working with people that need ADA accessibility,
right?
and you need to have it. It has to be accessible. So parking is always important for any business. Parking is important, but if that's a dynamic also, like that's something that has to be considered. I would say exposure signage, where can you put up a sign? Like some places you can maybe only put, and every town and every municipality and every village has different.
So you've really got to do your
Right.
research.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you can only put up a certain sized sign on this building, and that has nothing to do with an agent or broker.
Right.
It's based on what the municipality
Zoning
says.
and
It's zoning
codes
and codes. Exactly. So that, is there a pylon? Is it just like, is there a pylon on the street?
Mhm.
Or is it just going to be on the physical building? Or is it both? Can you put it on a corner? There's so many different things. Is it in a lobby? Like there's a lobby to the building?
I know. I think about this like in my personal life. So moved to South Carolina, joined a gym, and it's like 6-minute drive from my house.
Right.
This is perfect.
Right.
And
Convenient.
so I go there, and it's in the middle of like nothing. There's like, it's this rundown area, and then there's this brand new beautiful apartment building that's right next to it.
Right.
And then there's this large warehouse shackish looking thing, and I'm like,
Is that where I'm
I
parking?
think that's the gym. And as I get closer, you see a sign and it's on the building. I'm like, oh, there's a sign. And the next time that I drove, I saw from each direction, like kind of catty corner to where the entrance is on both sides. There are those like almost like the politician signs or the little signs that you put in your yard.
Stakes.
Yeah. And it's like, oh,
metal stakes.
10-star fitness.
Yeah.
And I was like, and so that made me think about like codes. And so I'm like, I wonder if they're trying to work around, like they couldn't legally get signage there. And they're just like, boop in the grass with a little arrow, like we're that way.
Right. Because every town is different. Every village is different. Even to put up a real estate sign in certain villages, like if you want to sell your house, you can't put up a sign. Or a village could tell you that it could be literally like this big, or it could be, they have specific sizes that the sign can only be so big. So everywhere,
and there's
no set.
It seems like a risk seeing the current landscape too. Because if you go into like a building, maybe they've been out of business, so it's not like a live transition. Like this building is vacant, and you're going up to it, and you see the current signage as it stands. Automatically, just as a person, you're going to see that and assume like that's right.
Right.
Like I can do that.
Right.
And it's like, is it though?
Right.
Maybe they were in code in
at
compliance
the time,
at the time, or maybe
but
they weren't.
Changed it. Right. And that's very true though. And then sometimes they do change the codes.
So that's
so it really there's so many facets to it.
Yeah.
It's really amazing, like the things that you have to think about. That you don't really think about. But
and so again, it's going into those relationships and making calls to the right people, getting a hold of your town,
Absolutely.
whatever it is.
Right. I'm actually this afternoon was doing that for somebody that signed a contract today on
that's great,
on a property and is going to be buying in a village, in an incorporated village. So I said, you have to make sure that they want to do certain things. You have to look into what are the rules, what are the regs. It might not affect you, it might affect you depending upon what you're looking to do. So every situation is like I said,
research.
Research. People,
Mm-hmm.
like they wouldn't even think to.
Yeah. And if nothing else, like working with a broker or somebody in this position can help even guide them to the right people. I mean,
exactly. And me knowing the people that I know and being so involved in the community and Long Island for so many years, it's so beneficial because I really can connect all the dots. It's so important. It's like really.
Yeah. Because there's so many things that you like. You always look back and think, man, I wish I knew then what I knew now before going into it. And so getting people on your side and expanding your own network and bringing in the professionals that can help you to do that. It's just the same idea. Yeah, right. It's like
guiding people in the right direction.
Yes.
And there is, and like I'll say it again, it's like your direction is going to be different than my direction. Everybody has a different path in life. Everybody they evolve differently at different times in their life. So depending upon where they're at, their needs will change, and that's okay. It's like I'm always there to help you in whatever situation you're in. Absolutely. And I've had many people referring people to me and repeat customers coming back to me because they understand like how much I can help and assist them in the process. Mm-hmm. So and people sometimes too, it's amazing. You could help them on a residential side and wind up, they know I do both, and they'll call me a couple of years down the pike and be like, Gina, I'm looking to do a business, or I'm looking to move my office, or whatever, I'm expanding, or I'm downsizing, like help me,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
a
like
huge transition in life. Yeah, and we're
everything
right.
changes. Nothing is, that's like life. I mean, things change constantly. So it's great. I enjoy it. I enjoy helping people. So that's like the bottom line. That's my MO.
I love that. I absolutely. One of the last things that I wanted to touch on is, so you've been recognized for your community service, especially revitalizing downtown areas. When advising business owners on locations, do you discuss this aspect, this kind of community part of it on top of this is where it's going to be best for you financially and as a business?
Absolutely. Depending upon the type of business they want or are in, not want, that they're in, and depending upon, you know, their need. And if their desire is to have, like, they want as many people, foot traffic, right? They want people to be, they want the exposure. Some people, if it could be industrial zoning that they need, and they're not going to be able to be in a downtown because typically they're not zoned for industrial space, is not in a downtown. It's more retail oriented, right?
And it wouldn't be beneficial even to your business if you're like, if maybe you're a storage company, like a refrigerated storage, like you don't need to pay the cost for that
because it's more expensive. You pay for that. You're paying for exposure. You know, retail is going to be the higher end. Medical is the most expensive zoning, and then it goes to retail, and then it goes down from there. Like industrial space is obviously going to be less expensive than retail space, right? But depending upon your type of business, will determine, can you be in a downtown? And then if you can be in a downtown, where do you want to be, right? And there are certain areas across Long Island, and they've been building up for so many years. They've changed. They're all getting on that, you know, gravy train. They're realizing like the importance of being in a downtown and how it helps your business thrive. So I could give you another example. I was referred by somebody in New Jersey that knew me from Long Island from years past. And somebody was moving to Long Island, did not know the landscape of Long Island at all, was in business for 30 years and had a great store.
I'm getting like anxious just thinking about putting myself in that person's space.
Like completely clueless, like does not know where to go, what to do. And you have to meet, she'll help you. I'm telling you, blah, 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 blah. Fast forward. So I wound up putting her right in the heart of Huntington Village, the heart, like right at the main intersection of Huntington Village. Where
I've been there so many times.
Expressions. If you ever go down there, it's a beautiful store, and it's really beautiful. And it's literally like right in the heart of the town, Main Street, where New York Avenue and Main Street intersect. It's great. And I mean, it's just a matter of knowing your client really, and knowing, you know, what is going to be the best and most suitable thing for them, and helping them through that process. If she said to me, I don't want to be in a downtown, that's different, right? Obviously. So then you could look for a standalone. Some people want their own standalone building where they have their own little parking lot. They don't want people, you know, next to them. They just want to have their own standalone building and individual space. Then to each his own, right?
Yeah.
So everybody thinks differently, and they want different things.
Yeah, you have a vision for your organization in the future.
That's okay. Exactly. And that's what makes the world go round.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And the more clear you are on your vision and what you want your business to look like, you know, the better you can communicate that with the people in your network to help get you moving in the right direction.
Right. So I've been on the Suffolk County on the Downtown Revitalization Panel for like about a decade now. So it's so interesting because we receive all the applications from all the different, you know, the municipalities have to work with the organizations that are putting in the applications and what it is that they're applying for. And of course, there's a whole, you know, process of what you need to include in that application. It's not simple, you know, it's convoluted, you know, but again, it's an education process, right? So, but every year we get the applications. We just did it on Monday, actually. Yesterday, we had the final for this year's round of, you know, doing the approvals on the, you know, we had like 22 applications, but not everybody can get approved. You know, there's only a certain amount of money that's in the pot, and it has to, you know, first of all, it has to be suitable to the application. And if you're not following the compliance that is in front of you, that you have to follow these steps, sometimes by default, it could be a great concept, but if you didn't follow the rules, it's okay. try next year. Like, you
Yeah.
know, like it's unfortunate,
rough.
but right.
But it's
but it's a learning process,
Exactly.
like anything else, you know, and then they'll try the following year and they realize, you know, what they need to tweak, you know, so, but it's so interesting because you get to see what parts of the island are doing what, and
yeah.
which is great because from my perspective, I could help people, you know, make decisions. You know, I don't tell them where to go. I don't
Right.
tell them what to do. I guide them in
Yeah.
answering their questions, and just having the knowledge is so important. You know, just being able to all the facets and all the different perspectives that I could see it from is really beneficial.
Bonus question I
Yeah.
just thought of. We had an awesome guest on before, Tom Dolan. He's the head of the IDA for Babylon. Yep.
Okay.
And then
With
he
the IDAs.
Yes, and he came up just again in the conversation we had with Dwayne Gregory, councilman of Town of
Yes.
Babylon.
No,
And so I know it's just amazing, like this connection of people.
Yes.
So do you do work with the IDA?
As a matter of fact, yesterday I was working with the head of Brookhaven. There's a Suffolk County IDA,
Right.
there's a Nassau County IDA, but there's also within Suffolk County there are individual IDAs. So that's another way of working with people, obviously. So I refer people to IDAs as well. I literally just did that yesterday. I was on the phone with Jim Tulo from his
That's
office.
amazing.
And at Brookhaven. Yeah. So it's all related. It's all connected. And, you know, knowing the right people and being able to say, I can help you. I can help you with this. Like, that's tremendous. Like,
There's like an ocean of
Right.
resources and people and experience out
Right.
there.
knowing
You just got to tap into it.
supervisors, knowing the
Yes.
legislators. I know all the legislators. Like, it's like you know everybody. It's just, and they know who you are and they respect you and I respect them. So we have a great rapport. You know what I mean? It's just, you know, you're dealing with people for so many years. It's just it's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It really is. It's just, yeah, I do too. That's why I said before, I love it. I love helping
Yeah.
people and I really do.
I love people
So-
that come on to this show with us and not only share like insights that people can
Right.
take and kind of
Yeah.
put forward and take action on, but also that serve as like a resource for them to be able to go to help them along in this journey to expand their network and things
Right.
like that, and just to learn and all of that and educate.
I say that word all the time because it really is educating.
As I was going to say, as a business owner, but I just philosophically believe that we should all always be a student at heart, because everything we do, there's so much that we don't
I
know
love
about.
to learn. Like,
Yes.
it's funny because like I love to learn, and the good thing is too, like I have licenses, so I'm always taking continuing ed, but I love it.
Yes.
Because I enjoy it. There's always things to learn. I mean, every year I'm doing either appraisal or I'm doing broker, and then I do appraisal because it's like every 2 years for both. But thank God they alternate. So I have like,
Gotta change it up. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's great.
Well, and this is coming from somebody with decades upon decades of experience, and you have the connections and everything, and you're still striving to learn more.
Right.
So if nothing else, I think people can take that away. Is just
Yeah.
like be in the mind of
Being ready.
like what do you, coming from like if I'm the business owner, what does this other person sitting across from me know that I don't already know? And not just presuming that. I think we have an egotistical drive to be like, well, I know this and this and this. And then
Right.
somebody says something they know and you're like, you didn't know that. And rather than having that joyous moment that's like, oh, tell me more. It's like, oh, well, I know about this other thing too.
Right.
You know, it's like, you don't have to outknow somebody.
It's not about
know?
out knowing.
No.
It's really just informing people. Like, it's really not a game. Like,
100%.
It's not. I don't look at it like that at all. I'm
Beautiful.
just looking to seriously help them and just make a better situation for them.
Yep.
You know, that's really what it is.
I love
And
it.
yeah, it's
It's
great.
amazing.
It is.
Gina,
It's so beneficial.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
this
it
was
was
fun.
such a pleasure. It was great. I really enjoyed this. Thank you
Thank
so much for bringing me in.
Appreciate
Thank you. A pleasure meeting you.